5 years later, it completely drops off of Medicaid's radar. It's not part of what needs to get spent down. Everybody goes, oh, that's great, that's wonderful, let's go ahead and do that. Well, look, there's a catch.
Hi, this is Jeff Marsacci, the Plain English Attorney, and welcome to the video. Before we dig into today's topic, please help us get out solid, accurate information on estate planning and Medicaid planning by liking the video and subscribing to the channel. Unfortunately, the algorithms just tend to favor videos that tell people what they want to hear instead of what is actually true. If you want us to get the truth out there about estate and Medicaid planning information, then please like the video and subscribe to the channel.
Seventh big one, a charitable remainder trust. How many people have experienced this or know anything about a charitable remainder trust? Okay, this is where we're starting to get into more advanced things. And I end up telling people, are you familiar with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and all the money that they gave to that foundation? If you don't think they're coming out ahead, even gifting all that money, I think you're wrong. They're coming out ahead. And it's because of all of these different techniques. This is a case that I worked on with a dentist. He had his own dental practice, but he also bought the building that he did his dental practice in. And he had depreciated it. Now this building, let's just say it was worth $1 million. He bought it for $100,000, but he depreciated everything down to zero. That's something called capital gains recapture. So basically, because you deducted it off income taxes, it's income taxable. That would have been $1 million in income tax. He didn't want to do that. Okay, so what he did, we set up this charitable remainder trust, moved the office building in there. And this is all kind of prearranged with the charity and with the buyer. And then the charity sells the building. He retained an income stream over the next 15 years, which was taxable. He ended up actually, in the long run, getting more than $1 million. But the charity also got several $100,000 at the end of the line because it was invested and it was growing under the auspices of the charity. So you can, again, this is an instance where we've washed away those taxes. The charity got a benefit and the only loser was Uncle Sam. So if there's this charitable intent and you've got this really appreciated asset like a building, this is always some way to look at it that can benefit the charity. And then the last one, this is a really new one, a testamentary charitable remainder trust. Basically, you're not donating a building ahead of time. You're actually naming this trust as the pay-on-death beneficiary for an IRA. That's 100% income taxable. If you left $1 million, let's just say it's $1 million IRA, and well, I kind of want it to go to my only child. Okay, that's $1 million. That's like $100,000 a year, roughly, that they're going to have to take and put on their 1040 in addition to whatever their income taxes are that particular year. They're going to get slaughtered with taxes. They're going to be way high up in the upper tax brackets. Instead, that same deal with, okay, the charity is going to give them a stream of income that's actually going to be partially income taxable, but it can be for the rest of their lives. And again, no income taxes for the charity to receive that money. And now, again, the only big loser in all of this is Uncle Sam. And what you've done is you've kind of left a legacy to both. The charity's getting a chunk of money, and that only child beneficiary has a stream of income for the rest of their life. So those are, again, just 8 techniques. There's a lot of different things, a lot of different ways. And to leave money and donate to a charity, other than just saying, here you go. Here's $100, here's $500, here's $1,000. You can set this up to be very well tax advantaged for you at the same time that the charity is benefiting. All right. Anything you want to add for that before we just open it wide for questions? Any questions? Was it that really overwhelming?
I think all of our batteries are
Yeah. Yes.
running down by the end of the day.
Hi, so I'm a neurologist, and we see, work with a lot of different people in clinic who are often coming to me, a neurologist, with these questions. Do you have different categories of advice for people who themselves or their loved one is symptomatic, and they're making plans around this? Maybe it's a new diagnosis or family hasn't heard of HD before, versus someone who's at risk and considering predictive testing. So we have our little panel of stuff that we're supposed to tell people. Considering predictive testing, you might want to set this up, you might want to consider this, make an informed choice. We're not telling you what to do, but we're giving you information before you do your testing. And this is a genetic counselor and I trying to keep track of the rules, right? So do you have things that are different that you would advise people to think about if they're coping with, okay, I want to rethink now that our family is coping with a new diagnosis, versus, okay, I know I'm at risk now and I'm an adult of whatever age, and I want to think about some stuff before I decide for myself to pull the trigger on my testing.
Okay. I don't provide different advice based on where they are.
Okay.
I give advice based on what their goals are,
Yep.
considering in what position they're in. One of the big things, and this is actually a good lead in to what we call care assistance planning, where we're trying to potentially get someone qualified for Medicaid to pay for long-term care, potentially in a nursing home. Okay, we have that revocable living trust that I mentioned for estate planning. That's great at avoiding probate. It doesn't do anything to guard money in that trust against Medicaid saying you have to spend that down below that $2,000 limit. It's for avoiding probate. There are irrevocable trusts that we will use. We call this the two trust solution, even though there's more than two, and we're generally setting up both of these trusts. There's an irrevocable property trust and an irrevocable family trust, and as the name implies, the property trust is for real estate, and the family trust is where you would put money and other investments and stocks. If you take it, move that money in, 5 years later, it completely drops off of Medicaid's radar. It's not part of what needs to get spent down. And everybody goes, oh, that's great, that's wonderful, let's go ahead and do that. Well, look, there's a catch. And the catch is, when you put that money in that trust, you are no longer the trustee.
If you think it's important for educational videos like this to get out there, then please help us out by subscribing to the channel.
You can't control it. You have to treat it as if you gifted it away. Thing is, you're naming trustees that are pretty much going to get money out and take care of you and do whatever you're telling them to do in terms of getting money back to you. But legally, they don't have to. So when I lay that out, a lot of my clients ahead of time may say, hey, I'm just at risk, I'm not symptomatic, I haven't even done the testing. I don't want to give up control of my own stuff now. Look, that's valid. Who wants to give up control of everything that they have until they see that there's an actual problem? A lot of my clients, whether it's HD or it's just something like dementia or something else that's coming along the way and they see that it's coming, they may be a lot more willing at that point to give up control to a very trusted person. So that's how the irrevocable trusts work. Any comment from David or?
I have a comment.
Yeah.
I think that's the estate planning piece is part of it, but I think what your question was, okay, now they're facing the choice to go ahead and go through testing, but you're giving them like, oh, here's a checkbox before you do so.
Yeah, so you might want to think about this. You don't have to do it, but here's things that you
Yeah.
might want to put in play before you decide for yourself to do testing versus.
I would say
after.
it's the care assistance plan.
Yeah.
In general, right? There's a heavy part of that is the legal and estate planning, but there's also the, say, insurance options, right? Once you have something on your medical record, then a lot of your options, not all, but a lot of options have just gone right off the table. I know generally it's kind of expressed that like, hey, if you're diagnosed with Huntington's, then insurance is just, no, you're not gonna get it anymore. That's not true.
It's not true.
Not at all. No, there are companies that offer certain types of benefits for chronic needs, home health care, assistance with simplified underwriting. Now, you're not going to get a plan that's going to pay for it for the rest of your life, but it may cover 1 to 2 years, which may be enough to get you through the 5 years.
Yep.
With the estate planning part together. So yes, the care assistance planning, I would say always talk to, of course, we're here as a support for HD Reach, but even your financial advisor. But sometimes I like to ask, does everybody here or anybody have a financial advisor? Have they ever sat down and talked to you specifically about care assistance planning? No. Right. It's usually always about what stock we're going to pick or what the income plan is going to be for 15 years later or 20 years later. It's kind of a horizontal picture instead of vertical with like the family dynamic and everything. So that's kind of the way we approach it at the Care Assistance Center is as a team. I handle a lot of the financial insurance aspect of it, a lot around Medicare and long-term care. Jeff is the estate planning attorney who will get the documents we need or will review the documents you already have to make sure they have the right language for what you're facing. A lot of times we've seen power of attorneys that might be missing something specific to gifting or to just something in there missing. Jeff will catch that and say, hey, this is something that could maybe cause a problem with your planning, and then just get that document redone before it's too late. A big part of it is the Medicaid planning, but that's kind of like the end game, like when things are already at their extreme. So proactively doing the care assistance planning means Medicaid might not be what you're trying to get. You're trying to be able to maintain control as long as you can over where you're at and what you do. But unfortunately, it is very expensive to pay for care. Genworth released a study for Raleigh for 2024, and for just 45 hours a week of home care, it's $75,000 a year. And that's 45 hours a week, not full time. And then home aid was around the same. Semi-private nursing home, $105,000, and about $116,000 for a full private room. So self-pay is an option, but you kind of can see how fast the money can go when that happens. So trying to get the insurance policies that are available to you in place before it's too late is a good thing. And then also, a big part of care assistance planning is the Medicaid spending. What does the state do? And that's where I think it's a good opportunity to bring David in. He's worked specifically with several families in the last year from HD Reach that have been referred, and we've had good luck with them.
So this title, Care Assistance Team, want to clarify, we don't provide care. What we do is look at ways to help options for getting care provided, different ways that can be done in-home, in a community, but more importantly, ways to pay for that care. As you just said, a lot of money involved, as you all know. So we look at what can be done now and what can be done in the future to help pay for that care. And nobody knows where this, well, we know it's never going to get better. It's only going to get worse. But exactly where it's going to go, we don't know. But we want to really discuss options. And in terms of the work that Jeff has been talking about, it's understanding when it gets there, what can we do to help preserve what legacy we have to make sure that it's done in such a way it addresses the values we have, how that money is going to be used or not used. A great example is that was it here in this meeting you talked about the daughter that inherited a fair amount of money and then remarried? Was it in the last meeting? But somebody, some daughter married some guy and yeah, exactly that. You give it to the child, but then the child marries some jerk that then has access to that money and it's gone, right? And there's ways to protect that. So, but back to this care assessment team, which I help oversee, we have, in addition to coordinating with the team at HD Reach and the social workers and professionals, we have a primary care physician that we consult with and a registered nurse to understand, try to get an understanding of where this could be going, and look at what benefits that may be available through the, quite frankly, hundreds of thousands in taxes you paid over the years, Medicare, and don't turn your nose up at Medicaid. When I use that word, people, oh, that's for the poor, that's for the destitute, that's where you get lousy care, that's where you lose all your money and they take your home. No, no, no. If you start now, don't wait till you're there and in need of that $10,000 a month nursing home, but start now looking at what can be done so that when you arrive there and you get to that level, you can access Medicaid. There's several programs in North Carolina that you can get. If you wait till you get there, you're never going to get it, because you've got to make some of these maneuvers that Jeff's talking about now to be able to qualify for it then. So yeah, we don't provide care. We look at working with the kind of questions that Jeff raises and the financial issues that Mike talks about, how to be able to access care and pay for it. That's what our care assessment's about.
Yeah, for my estate planning clients, I often talk about long-term care, and they say, well, when really should we look at long-term care and what the options are? Right now, get the information at least. You may not be acting on it, but at least you're consciously not acting from a point of knowing what's going on, and you're making an informed decision instead of just waiting till the last minute. Yes?
So do you find that they say no to you right away just because you have Huntington's disease? Because that's what happened when I looked.
For long-term care?
Yeah.
Not necessarily.
So, yeah, there's a long conversation around the long-term care industry, but I'd say the short and skinny is traditional long-term care insurance. The underwriting does take into account, of course, any diagnosis that you have on your record. And the way they phrase it is, have you seen a medical professional, been treated for, advised, or received something in the nature of any of the following? And if you answer yes and Huntington's disease is on there, then yes, you're underwritten, probably declined for many types of options. The other issue is they investigate the immediate family. So they'll dive into, has anyone in your immediate family been treated for this? So with traditional long-term care, they do investigate into Huntington's disease. There are a couple companies that do not, but it's specific to the individual, whether, I can't just say, hey, go do this, right? You want to have a conversation. In my business and industry, we call it field underwriting. We want to go in knowing what we expect the answer to be. And so that's kind of my job, is to field with the person before they apply, so they don't go and apply and then now they have to tell every insurance company they've been denied for coverage for the next 5 years of their life. That's their kind of like their secret handshake. Oh, if they said no, then we're just going to say no. right? So it's trying to get through that process without putting any flags up. And then once you've got the coverage that's available to you, and then you can be a little more open with talking to the doctors, getting the medication and things like that. And we're not talking about gaming the system here, it's just looking for companies that have it built into their process so they're not concerned about it as much. Like they know what the Huntington's disease is, believe me. They've dealt with people that have it, and they decide whether they want to ask questions about that. Is it something that we need to underwrite as a risk or not? And so we look for options where they don't do specific medical underwriting for Huntington's. Now, if someone's already receiving assistance daily, having home health care in a facility, then yes, those options are gone, and that's where probably we're looking at preserving assets and looking at Medicaid and what the state has to offer without going broke. But if you've been diagnosed, but you're not symptomatic to the point where you can get up and do everything like you're living your life normally to the best of your ability, there are options out there. Yep.
Or even if your family, like the father is diagnosed, but the kids haven't been tested.
Right.
So the kids can still safely, kids meaning adult kids.
Yeah,
can
no,
still
no,
safely have
even say 18 or above
Yeah.
or whatnot. Yes, there's stuff, yeah. So I've successfully gotten coverage for people that have the older family members, immediate family members who were diagnosed and died from Huntington's disease. We have to go a little bit of a different route with it. We're not going for traditional long-term care. And a lot of times it's because those companies don't even offer that insurance to someone who's under the age of 40 or even 50. It's just not in their the market. So we look at approaches. In fact, I can actually talk quickly, if we have a minute, the strategies that I have on our handout for care assistance planning. So one is life insurance that has living benefits. So life insurance is underwritten different. It's similar to long-term care, but not as focused on the morbidity as it is the mortality. So the questions are a little bit less restrictive on immediate family. They want to know if it's been heart disease or cancer under the age of 60. If that's a no, you don't have to go any further and say, well, my mother was diagnosed with Huntington's and she died at 65. If you mention that and they write that down, then that's going to take into consideration. The important thing is to understand the context of the question and just answer it as simply as it's asked. So life insurance policies, there's a few companies that will include these, what they call accelerated benefits of the life insurance. And it's through, the most common has always been terminal illness. So if you're diagnosed terminally ill with 12 months or less, then they'll let you accelerate the majority of your life insurance so you can take that cruise around the world or make yourself more comfortable. Because they know they're going to pay that claim in a year or less. Now they've added these options for chronic and critical acceleration of benefits. So you're not going to get 90% of the death benefit, but you might be able to qualify for 25% of it on an annual basis based on the chronic condition. And since it's not as much of a risk to the insurance company based on the type of insurance it is versus long-term care, they don't ask the same questions. So I've been successfully able to help some younger folks get stuff like that. And we're going with extremely long-looking term policies, say 30 years. That way they've got a guaranteed cost for the majority of the window that they're concerned about. And because they're young and it's term insurance, it's super expensive. It's extremely affordable because they're leveraging their youth. Because statistically to the company, that policy will end and they will never have to pay out a death claim.
Because it's term.
It's term, yeah. But there's built-in features to make it permanent without insurability. So again, it's a case-by-case scenario, which direction I might go with someone, but we've had success. Does that answer?
Well, thank you very much, everyone, for
Yeah.
being here.
I
We are
encourage
available for
everybody
questions.
to take one of these and
We've got
some
handouts here. Thank you very much.